Good afternoon and welcome to Beholden To Truth. It is your humble host, Joshua here, returning for another happy hour session. Sitting outside of the gym, getting caffeinated with my pre-workout here. And you guys, we're in for it today. You're in for it today. I've been in for it today. It's not been easy, okay? Not an easy day for me. Some kind of trivial, annoying stuff. And some more difficult things that are not so trivial. Things I've talked about on this vlog, but they resurface from time to time and try to derail my mission and affect what we are trying to achieve in a negative way. And so it is the ideal day for me to get on the mic, hang out with you guys, share my struggle, as so many of us have shared our struggles before. So I'll knock out the couple of trivial things that are just kind of annoying. This is just life. These things happen. But then we're going to spend the bulk of the time going into some feedback I have received. Feedback? Yeah, feedback. So for one, I'm sitting in my mobile office, as I call it, my truck, and the stupid thing is overheating. I just bought this truck like 5 or 6 months ago. I had it for 1 month and it started overheating. So I take it in while it's under warranty. They put a new hose on something or other. I'm not a mechanic. And then here we are a few months later, it's doing the exact same thing. So I book an appointment to get it dropped off at the mechanic next week, but now it's like overheating to the point of looking like I shouldn't even be driving it. It's giving me these warnings on the dash that the coolant temperature has exceeded its limit and all this stuff. So pretty frustrating. You go and spend a good bit of money on a new truck and to have to deal with all these problems in the first 6 months. That's annoying. Second, this one's a little more comical, but still annoying. I got stood up for a date today. Can you guys believe this? Somebody, some lucky woman, had the opportunity to go on a first date with me, and she just completely blew me off. You know, we matched on this dating app like on Monday. Nice conversation, no seeming hints or indicators that would make me expect her to just suddenly ghost and disappear. And so on Monday, I say, all right, you want to get coffee at this shop nearby on Wednesday, 10 o'clock, get a nice morning coffee. She agrees, looking forward to it, have a little bit of chatter later that evening. Send her a message this morning, Wednesday morning. Hey, are we still on for coffee? At like 9 o'clock, you know, an hour ahead of time. No response. Nothing. I don't know what's up, man. I don't know what's up with this world. What's up with these people who just ghost, you know? If you just maybe did a background check, you found out that I have this other endeavor in my life that is not something you want to be a part of. I don't know. Maybe that's what she did. Maybe she searched facial recognition or something on Google and found out, oh man, look what this guy's up to. I don't want to be any part of that. She claimed to be Christian, claimed to be highly conservative. She's white. Seemed like a good girl, honestly. Thought I was lined up for a pretty strong lead here. But I don't even know. This is the thing, I don't even get an explanation. I'm just lost in the woods in terms of what happened to what could have been Mrs. Right. Oh well, this is number 1,000 over the course of the last 20 years of dating. These things happen, guys. You can't take it personally. Like, you can sit around and obsess over, like, why didn't she show up? Why didn't she respond? Was it me? Was it something in her life? Like, it's just a unnecessary drain on your emotion and attention to ponder about complete strangers. And even if it's somebody you were in a relationship and they decide that you're not the one for them, you got to just move on, okay? You can't sit around picking yourself apart, speculating about why they did what they did, if they cheated on you, or if they just said it's nothing like that, it's just I don't think we're compatible. You know, hopefully it's not something that I wish for everybody, but when you have enough relationship experience to have been on both sides of it, to where sometimes you got to break it off because it's just clear that they're not the right person for you, then you start to become a little more understanding and rational and empathetic when other people say, listen, it's like, you're just not the right guy for me. Whether they just come to that conclusion silently and ghost you, Or you get into a relationship and they choose to go the other way. You say, okay, like, I'm not going to sit here and try to fight you. And yes, I am the right man for you. Like, no, that's not how you should conduct yourself as a man. Okay. So you let them be. And I know a lot of people will disagree with it. You have to fight for the relationship, fight for this and that. Listen, marriages are different. When you're talking about you've only been on a handful of dates with this people or less, and they express that you're not the right one for them, you do not need to be writing them essays about, oh, I thought we were so compatible because we were both Christian and we're both conservative and we both love dogs and pizza. And like, come on, just move on. Take the L, move on, guys. So those are a couple of annoying thorns in my side today, you know, but these things happen. However, a much larger thorn in my side that has been in my side for the last 3 years, that I actually did a vlog about a week or two ago, where I talked about how boomers are basically unsalvageable at this point. And I know, like everything else, there's exceptions to this, and I love the few boomers who follow me and support the channel, and they'll agree with me that their own co-boomer demographic, most of them are Martin Luther King worshiping, covert feminist, if not outspoken feminists, scared to talk about the Jews, scared to talk about race. They are liberals, even those who consider themselves conservative, and they go out and vigilantly vote for Donald Trump and the Republican Party and the GOP. And that's why they think that they are conservative. But then they say, well, our movement should be open to gays, trannies, blacks, Hispanics, Arabs, Jews. It's like, what exactly are you conserving again? So, you know, me being a elder millennial, my parents are boomers. And so as I have been doing this activist work over the last 3 years, standing for America first, which means I've summarized this 10 million times, but because we're always getting new followers, we have to just say in a couple sentences, what does America first actually mean? America first means protecting the historic identity of America above all other nations, not allowing other nations' interests to ever become more important than our interests. And the historic identity of America actually does have a definition. And its definition is not, let's create the strongest economy in the world. Its definition is not, let's celebrate all religions of the world. Its identity is not, every culture in the world is just as good as the people's culture who created the country. That is not America. That is post-liberalism. That is something that was pushed largely only 1960 and forward through the sexual revolution, the feminist movement, Civil Rights Act, all that stuff. That's not what America was defined by for its first 350 of its 400-year existence. That's historical revisionism, to say that America is the land of opportunity for just anyone who wants to work hard, and we are racially colorblind, and women are just as capable as men. No, that's what the boomers were taught in elementary, middle, high school, and college, and that's what the mass media drowned them with in all of the movies, television shows, the radio shows that they used to listen to. Martin Luther King getting up there and moralizing everybody. That's what they all swallowed without any objection, without any level of critical thinking, without looking around the rest of the world to fact check any of those claims, without looking in the Bible to see if any of those claims are true. Did Jesus say that all religions are appropriate? Yeah, well, let's ignore what's in the Bible. Does the Bible say that men and women should hold equal roles in society, equal roles in the house, equal roles in the church? No. Let's just ignore what the Bible says. Does the Bible say that every people group of the world should live on top of each other? Actually, no, it doesn't. It doesn't say that at all. It doesn't say it in the Old or New Testament. And I've provided the biblical scripture citations for that, multiple videos. I'm not going to do all that again right now, although I will actually hit on that here in a couple moments when I provide a little bit more about what happened today. And so I mentioned in the previous vlog about boomers being essentially a lost cause, that no matter how much you try to provide the empirical evidence to them, whether it's about the racial differences in culture, economic contribution, levels of safety, so on and so forth, or if you try to point out the objective, empirical, provable, disproportionate representations of the 2% of America, Jews, how they are dominating the most influential civil institutions in America, the government, the media, the finance industry, and education. These things that are responsible for literally every minute of your life, the entire information diet that floats around in your head, the education you received since the first minute that you went to a public school, all the way through the point that you got your degree. These are the ones shaping the corporate atmosphere with their DEI policies, with their celebration of women in the workplace. I mentioned before that you really can't get through to them. It's not even a matter of, look, just let me share with you the evidence. Let me share with you that these things are not irrational perspectives, and they're certainly not unbiblical perspectives. Whether you provide them the biblical citations, whether you provide them the data about women's group behavior, the way they vote, the current situation of women, 50% or more of 30-year-old women being single and childless, 1 million abortions per year, the fact that they self-report that they are unhappy given all of these additional liberties that they have been provided, that 10% of 18 to 24-year-old women are prostitutes on OnlyFans. It doesn't matter how much data you share with them, like I said, whether it's gender, whether it's religious ambivalence, pretending that they're all going to be able to somehow mesh together, or obviously the racial issues. It doesn't matter how much data you provide in terms of criminality and economic dependence of these minority groups as it compares to whites, not even within the United States, but you can go even further on this lens and look at how this is consistently true across the entire world. It doesn't matter. Like, there's just no breaking through the barrier of, well, my kindergarten teacher taught me, and then my first grade teacher reminded me, and then my second grade teacher reminded me. You get the point, all the way up through 16, 17 years of indoctrination. And even if you somehow didn't absorb the formal education, you had Steven Spielberg reminding you how important it was that we all know that Jews are the single group who have suffered the most throughout all of human history at the hands of evil white people. Same with blacks. The black people's suffering is only maybe close to the Jews' suffering, and of course, it came at the hands of those evil white people. Blacks, Arabs, Jews, none of these other people are responsible for genocide. No, of course not. None of these other people involved themselves with human slavery on a mass scale. No, of course not. None of these other people waged holy wars against other nations. No, of course not. It genuinely astounds me that anybody can come with an honest perspective of actually sitting down, actually reading world history, actually studying the empirical data, FBI crime data, social welfare program data, global patterns, global immigration patterns, that anybody can just reach these conclusions is very frustrating for me. But, so, I obviously do this work a lot. I do this work a lot. Hours and hours and hours, thousands of hours invested, thousands of posts made trying to wake people up. And I'm not discriminatory. Anybody of any age, of any race, of any religion can watch this content. It's not like I try to keep it to certain individuals. It's not like I go and ban people on my following list because they're not white or not Christian or they're not male or something like that. But anyway, I said in the previous vlog, it's like every 6 months, I have my family member, my dad, who likes to remind me that even though we still have a relationship, even though we get along and put aside our differences and enjoy each other's company and that kind of thing, even though we're able to peacefully do all of that, he has to remind me about once every 6 months that I am ruining my life and that all my opinions are wrong and that they are leading me down a dangerous path and that all of my suffering is self-imposed and that my suffering is because of my questionable worldview. That all of this I have done to myself and I really need to course correct, otherwise it's just going to get worse for myself, and even I'm going to end up hurting a whole bunch of other people, maybe causing a genocide. I have to be reminded of this stuff every 6 months or so. And so today was an actually a little bit abbreviated reminder in that he already reminded me of this like 2 weeks ago. That's why I did a vlog about it. But for whatever reason, he felt compelled to follow up with some additional brilliant commentary on his understanding of racial situations especially. And so he sends me this email communication this morning, and I'm going to read it to you guys. And I share these things vulnerably because I want you to understand that this is the strength it takes to succeed in this mission. The very few people who don't just fully disassociate with you and say they want nothing to do with you, friendships, family, romantic relationships, church groups, you're going to have to shed most of those just by default. And there will be a very few small people who have the grace, perhaps because they're Christian, perhaps because they actually have a somewhat high IQ, to say, okay, I disagree. I don't endorse any of that. I don't think it's for the best. But I've known you my entire life, or I've known you for however long, and I know you're actually a good person, and I know that you don't want to hurt anybody. And so we can have a disagreement about politics, about religion, whatever it may be, but continue to have a healthy, good relationship. And so I'm down to 2 of those in my life. I don't have a church group anymore, and I don't have a large friend group here personally in my city. I have plenty of friends through you guys, through this work. But the friend group, the church group, and then all of my other family members have disowned me other than 2, one of them being my dad. Nonetheless, as I said, he still feels the fatherly need to remind me that I have ruined my life and it's only going to get worse every 6 months. And as I said, today he felt compelled to elaborate further on how all of my worldviews are dark and twisted and misguided. So I'm going to read you what he wrote to me, and then I will read you my response back to him. And hopefully that will prepare you for the likely criticisms you're going to draw and how to respond to those criticisms. That's my entire job. That's what this platform exists for. It's to help you with the narrative strategies, the articulation, how to deal with these allegations, these conflations of our arguments that are either disingenuous, mischaracterized, uncharitably interpreted, sometimes intentionally, sometimes because it's just a matter of ignorance. Whichever one, you have to be prepared to dissect and reply to these things that are going to get mischaracterized, slandered, and so on. So let's take a smoke if you got them, take a swig of your pre-workout if you got it, and we're going to get into my life. My life. What was it Kanye said? Niggas see my Twitter, but they don't see how I be feeling. That resonates. That hits. They don't see how I be feeling. I mean, I'm a human being too, okay? And in fact, I'm probably far more empathetic than they are in the fact that I'm trying to watch out for an entire race of people not being swept off of the earth. I don't want anything ill or harmful to come of all of the other races. I don't hate other races. I don't hate other people of other religions, and I don't hate women. That conflation of criticizing any of those groups, it gets reduced to, oh, so you hate them. Oh, so you think you're superior to them every single time, like clockwork. It's a matter of critical thinking that just does not exist anymore. You just can't observe that these things are different without an implication of it being accused of hatred or inferiority. And it's kind of a reductive analogy, but if I say that I like chocolate cake, if you're somebody who likes vanilla cake and you're of that level of intelligence, you're going to respond with, so what? Why do you hate vanilla cake? You got a problem with vanilla cake? You think vanilla cake is inferior? It's like, well, I have a preference. How is this hard to understand? European culture is obviously different than African culture. It's obviously different than Asian culture. It's obviously different than all of the other racial cultures of the world. And so are they. African culture is not the same as Latin culture. East Indian culture is not even the same as East Asian culture. To make these observations, and perhaps if you are one of those groups, say, yeah, I kind of prefer my own, that's not shitting on, that's not saying those other ones are inferior, that's certainly not saying you hate them, that's not saying you want anything bad to happen to them. But these people have so low intellectual capacity. That's how they see it. And it's sad because I know these people, I start to wonder if IQ degrades after a certain level of propaganda. Because I know these people at one point in time were very intelligent. But they just don't get it. Like, they genuinely don't understand how religious conflict actually exists. If you invite people into your country who don't practice Christianity, but you were founded on Christianity, that's going to create conflict. If you invite people into your country who are not European and who want to keep their cultural methods, Arabs, Hispanics, Jews, Africans, that's going to create cultural conflict. My goodness. The fact that they can't put these pieces together just baffles me. I really do think, I don't know if it's the fluoride in the water, if it's the mass propaganda through the mainstream media and the education system, the fucking food that's been poisoned. I mean, listen, I eat plenty of poisonous food too. I'm breathing the same air too. I take a shower in the same water that they take a shower. I get it. And it's actually, it's those things, but obviously you can break through those things because there's plenty of red pill people who understand how all this works, and they're all subject to the exact same. They all went through public schools just like me. They all had a college education just like me. And you can argue whether or not that was more beneficial or not. They all use public water, okay? They all breathe the same air. And so that's where I start to think that this is something else. Like, this is something else. And I don't claim to know exactly why. I think it is partly generational in that the information diet is what's so different. The information diet of millennials, especially Gen Z and younger, their information is decentralized, independent media. Whereas boomers and older, overwhelming majority of their understanding of the world has been fed to them through centralized, for-profit, highly manicured, governmentally involved media. And they just don't even see why that would matter. They're like, oh, well, so that means that the young people aren't getting the right advice from the experts. It's like, okay. This is why I say it's a hopeless battle with them. We went through this with COVID, where CNN is telling you how dangerous the virus is and how you immediately need to go get a vaccine. And then they say, on now, to a commercial break, brought to you by Pfizer and Moderna and Johnson & Johnson. Those people who could not catch the conflict of interest, the fact that the news anchor who is paid by the person on the commercial who's telling you need the vaccine, they could not understand the conflict of interest there. They're the same people who will tell you that, oh, well, you got your information about vaccines and COVID from decentralized independent journalists. And so that's why you ended up this loony conspiracy theorist. And like, that is very symbolic. It's the stark divide between people who have come to understand that mainstream media is just a voice box for the government and the various systems, so to speak, that exist to keep people docile in agreement with the upper echelon of society, the 1%, the inner circle, whatever you want to call it. That's the only reason it exists, is to serve the system. It is not to educate you. It is not to expose corruption. It is not to get you into the healthiest state of physical, mental, and spiritual possibilities. It is to make you and keep you obedient to the system. And if that's where you're getting your entire worldview from, you're going to fight diligently to keep others in the system. That's the most devious part about it. What did he say about COVID? What did he say about vaccines? What did he say about race realism? What did he say about the Jews? What did he say about women? It's like they are fighters. They have been turned into fighters for the system of obedience and never dissenting on anything controversial or political. These are people who will die for Donald Trump, who will die for Joe Biden, fucking Kamala Harris. These are people who permanently tattoo onto their body politicians, celebrities, cartoon characters. I wish I were joking, but you know that's true. All right. Buckle up, okay? Here is what it looks like from the inside, what I have to deal with. This is the support that I have in my life for doing this. He sends me this link to a YouTube video, How the Scott Irish Transformed the American South, and here is his commentary on the video. It is my lived experience that enormous variability exists among the white population, parentheses, which in itself is essentially a useless label of no clear meaning in terms of intellect, moral character in terms of honesty, thievery, moral character in terms of work ethic, moral character in terms of respect for family, the sanctity of marriage, control over sexual impulses, and commitment to raise one's offspring with a deep sense of God-inspired responsibility and love. Sounds beautiful, doesn't it? This is true today, not only in America, but across the world. It was true for generations past. In every country through the course of human history, people of all colors have found ways to justify their superiority over their neighbor. Amongst countries, we see people banding together to claim their nation's superiority over other nations. Such arrogant and prideful behavior is at the root of most human conflict and wars. It is absolutely as far from the teachings of Christ as you can get. We are told to love thy neighbor, forgive our enemies, help the poor. Perhaps nowhere on earth have people mocked, ridiculed, suppressed, and murdered each other more than the white man of European origin. I'm not stopping to debunk every single one of these, by the way. I'm just saying this is what an indoctrinated normie's understanding of the world is. From Greeks fighting with the Trojans, Crusaders fighting with Muslims, Protestants fighting with Catholics, colonists fighting with their blood-tied monarchies, to civil wars in Spain, France, England, and the USA. People cannot get along with one another, especially white people. Especially white people. As if that's more so true than the tribal warlords of Africa or the cartels of South America or the indigenous warlords of what was America before white people got here. And here's the real sweet spot. Another example. The German atrocities in World War II are a common example of mankind utterly losing its moral compass. This is exactly what I'm talking about. And you guys know exactly what it means when somebody uses those evil German Nazis and their atrocities as an evidence of anything. Because that just goes to show that they have no actual understanding beyond Steven Spielberg and the History Channel of what actually motivated the Nazis, Hitler, the entire German nation to pursue what it pursued in World War II, which was a response to World War I, by the way, which was a response to the Bolshevik Revolution, by the way, which, might we want to remind you, ended up in about 50 to 60 million dead white European people. A communist revolution led by Jews. Do you think maybe that had something to do with the reason Hitler and the rest of the National Socialists mobilized to stop the spread of communism in Europe? Have you ever actually read what Hitler wrote? Have you ever actually listened to one of his speeches in English? Or are you just trusting Steven Spielberg? Are you just trusting Adam Brody from The Pianist? Are you just trusting Anne Frank? Continued. I summarily reject any ideology that suggests people of a color, a religion, or a national origin, or a gender are in some way inferior. Once again, that's not what anybody said. It's not a matter of superiority or inferiority. It's a matter of difference and preference. I'm speaking as if I were speaking to a 4-year-old. Okay? Is a white neighborhood superior than a black neighborhood? Well, one has a very different living condition to offer. You could call that superior if you wanted to, but inherently the people in the neighborhood, we're not going to say that they are superior people, but you can choose the living conditions, and this example, you can extrapolate this example into counties, neighborhoods, states, nations, continents even. Here we go, the bleeding heart liberal. People are individuals with independent souls. Why you have chosen to become so utterly obsessed with your ideology is beyond me. It certainly is nothing I taught you. It is an unhealthy and dangerous way of thinking. I see you selectively looking only for facts that confirm your bias, while selectively ignoring any facts which contradict your ideology. I urge you to pursue some mental health counseling. You experienced some traumas and isolation during COVID, when my family was disowning me. I think your reaction to these events has put you on a path that is not healthy for you. Love, Dad. Isn't that such a loving email? The virtue signaling, the moralizing, the complete ignorance in terms of world history, thinking that the Crusades were a bad thing, thinking that the Germans weren't justified for trying to protect their nation from communism, thinking that these other ethnic groups haven't also demonstrated perpetual millennia-long wars amongst themselves and against others, the same being true for slavery. So, how do you respond to an email like that? Because, as I said before, thousands of hours of education over 3 years have gone into debunking all of these things. And so to respond in text to all of these falsehoods or false equivalencies, all of these reductive arguments, I don't want to spend the time typing out a 10,000, 20,000 word response going through all of these one by one. And even if you were to watch my recorded content, it takes a while to articulate whether it's the historical narratives about World War II and the Crusades and slavery, or any of the other hints that were made in that email about how these things are morally questionable and how it's a dark path to look into them or have any kind of contrarian opinion about them. You have to choose how much of this you even want to engage with. So when I responded, I didn't try touching the Crusades. I didn't try touching World War II. As I said, I can't afford to write an entire book's worth of a response. But here is how I did respond. The number one question you guys are asking me is, how can I wake people up? And you also ask, how can I help support you? And so I have a solution for both of those questions. You can head over to my Substack. You'll be able to get exclusive early access to all of my documentaries, my long format content, free ebooks, and even a chance to talk to me one-on-one. You can do Ask Me Anythings. There's several different membership options for your budget, whatever fits your lifestyle. Head on over and get yourself a subscription now. And keeping in mind, this is my dad, this is my family member. I love the guy, so I'm not going at him the same way I would somebody else who just stumbles into the conversation and assumes that I'm some kind of morally degenerate person for caring about white people, insisting that what Jesus said himself, that there is only one real religion, that our country actually does have an identity, that all the different racial groups actually do have a group interest. So here's how I break this down. in a somewhat succinct way. The virtue signaling over this matter is not helpful. I can just as easily accuse your set of liberal worldviews as being extremely dangerous, both to myself and society at large. It was you who embraced gay marriage, abortion, feminism, transgenderism, religious ambivalence, promiscuity, Gnosticism, and more. And you passed those anti-Christian views to your children, and you have never done a single thing to oppose them socially. I could very easily suggest you should seek therapy, or preferably a return to Scripture and church, for the harm you have done to your children and your complicity in the harm these overtly anti-Christian beliefs have done to society. But I'm not interested in demonizing you. I will not be mistold what Jesus' teachings are by somebody who hasn't read the Bible in decades, as evidenced by your misguided belief that people can have a relationship with God via other religions. Actual blasphemy and a clear contradiction of Jesus' explicit words in John 14:6, which are, need I remind you, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. Nobody comes to the Father except through me. How does Hinduism slot into that? How does Judaism, who rejects Jesus Christ and thinks he's burning in hell, slot into that? Good questions. Maybe you should ask my very, very wise father. And your endorsement of the numerous overt sins I provided above, and your misunderstanding that God would desire for the entire world's population to live on top of each other. Again, a clear contradiction of Scripture. See Acts 17:26. I used this verse in a vlog earlier this week, the one about boundaries, how God established boundaries around the different people of the world intentionally. He understood that homogeneity reduces conflict. A reminder that God mandated physical boundaries separating the nations, aka people of the world, into different geographies after the Tower of Babel. If you need 1,000 more examples of God mandating homogeneity, go read virtually any chapter in the Old Testament, where God is constantly rebuking and warning his people about not assimilating foreign people. Christ's sacrifice for all mankind united us all in a covenant with God, which established equal value and equal means of salvation. It was not a mandate nor a suggestion for all people of the world to forcefully live on top of each other. I genuinely don't understand why you continue to misrepresent my view on race. I have never claimed whites are superior or that others are inferior. I have explained this to you multiple times. You can detect my frustration here. I've been trying to break through to this man for 3 years. Scientifically, to acknowledge that the races are different is an objective reality. They have different phenotypes, different skeletons, different musculature, even different blood, as evidenced by susceptibility to sickle cell for blacks. And yes, different brains. Race is not an optical illusion. It is an objective biological truth. The fact that blacks on average are taller and more muscular than Asians, this doesn't make them a superior race. The fact that Asians have a higher IQ than whites doesn't make them superior to whites. The fact that whites have a higher average IQ than blacks or Hispanics doesn't make whites superior to either. How is this hard to understand? It is your narrow learning of this subject that conflates difference with moral or otherwise superiority. James Watson, who was awarded the Nobel Prize for his discovery on the structure of DNA, insisted there are clearly differences in genetic attributes across racial lines, and in particular, a strong correlation of race and IQ. This finding has been mirrored in every global study of IQ across racial lines, IQ being a determinant of many social behaviors, including technical innovation and problem solving. Here's some quick facts. The average homicide rate across the 47 majority black countries is 13.2. Their poverty index is 43%, and their population is 66% Christian. That's 47 countries that are majority black. 66% of them are Christian. For whites, the average homicide rate across the 49 majority white countries is 1.4. Blacks, it was 13.2. Whites, it is 1.4. The poverty index across those 49 majority white countries is 18%. That is a 25% difference. And the Christian population is about 70%. By the way, all of this data that I'm citing here is included in my upcoming special course, documentary series, whatever you want to call it, White Sentience, that's coming on Substack. It is getting close, you guys. You need to be subscribed to Substack because this data and a whole lot more is coming in a very polished product. The average European IQ is 100. The average sub-Saharan African's IQ is 68. For Africans who have intermixed with Europeans, it's 85. When isolating US FBI crime data by race, you see the same phenomena with crime and poverty. You also see this among blacks living in Europe, and literally everywhere there is a large black population, including nations that were never colonized or enslaved, including those who were enslaved and were granted mass reparations. Despite both races holding roughly the same proliferation of the gospel, which you claim is the universal cure-all, across a sample size of over 1.5 billion people, one race demonstrates a homicide rate 10 times the other, and a poverty index 25% higher. This pattern holds up in African countries who were never colonized and who were never enslaved. This is 1/100th of the socioeconomic data I have studied. And even with the preponderance of undeniable socioeconomic and biological evidence that the races are genetically different, these realities are not the foundations of my perspectives on race. The more compelling and undeniable motivation for needing to discuss race in America is more abstract. I find it extremely hypocritical that you believe I have not considered enough pro-multicultural points of view and that I have cherry-picked some opposing positions. I and everyone in America have lived our entire lives only hearing the case for diversity, which simply means less white, and multiculturalism. We heard it from our parents, we heard it from our government-funded schools, from every Hollywood movie and television show, for decades, 24/7. Okay, so the phone overheated. I have this cooler in my car with my pre-workout and everything, so I put the phone in the cooler, chilled it for about 10 minutes, and we're gonna try to finish my response here. So picking up where I left off, my dad was saying how I've cherry-picked my positions and I'm not considering objectively the opposition being diversity and multiculturalism. And so I said, listen, we heard all of that stuff for our entire life, for decades, 24 hours a day, from our parents, from the media, from the education system. I think I understand the bullet points for multiculturalism. Meanwhile, sincere question. How much time have you afforded listening to anyone other than myself who oppose those positions? I'm sure you've done close to zero of this because you think those people are evil. You have been psychologically programmed from birth by the education system and media to think anyone who is pro-white is synonymous with the KKK or the Nazis, and that they are supremacist or some other nonsense. Of course, you wouldn't hold the same moral outrage over any black person saying they have pride in Africans, that African culture should be protected, that African people as a group have their own group interests, such as keeping the majority African countries still a majority. I'm sure you don't have a problem with the 50+ Jewish advocacy groups in America who exist explicitly to advocate for Jewish interests domestically and internationally, or a problem with Israel being an unabashed ethno-state explicitly for the protection of Jews, including discrimination laws to limit non-Jews from immigrating into the country. I'm sure the fact that Japan being 97% Japanese and China being 93% Chinese doesn't compel you to believe that those 1 billion plus people are all racial bigots for insisting their nations remain homogenous. Being conscious and protective of your own kin is not hatred toward other races, nor is it unchristian. This is not complicated. You are not demonstrating critical thinking or approaching the subject with any form of objectivity. only the usual anti-white pathological indoctrination. I highly suggest you watch the video below and recalibrate your understanding of what it means to recognize that white people are a distinct group with their own distinct interests, just as much as blacks are a distinct group with distinct interests, just as much as Jews, Asians, Indians, Hispanics, and so on all have their own distinct interests. To advocate for and protect white people and their nations, just as every race protects their people and their nations, is morally unimpeachable. Our founding fathers knew this. Everyone knew this up until 1960. Sadly, your generation developed Stockholm syndrome to their indoctrinators and a level of oikophobia that is truly pathological at the individual and societal level. I am trying to help you with this pathology and will continue to gracefully endure these outbursts. In the meantime, watch the below, as Jared Taylor is the gold standard for my positions. He's been doing this work for 30 years. He's a Yale graduate. He's spoken all over the world, and he has never lost a debate because all of these views are, as I said, morally unimpeachable. And I provided a link to Jared Taylor debating a black woman who agrees with everything that he says. She understands, even as a black woman, that for white people to say, yeah, actually white people have our own interest as a group. Yeah, white people have built different civilizations than black people, Asian people, Latin people, Arab people. To want to protect those nations and to see them as inherently tied to the people who built them, that just makes common sense. I can understand why you'd want to defend that. It's not immoral. It's not signifying hatred towards those other people. She can understand that. For some reason, my dad cannot. And we all know what that reason is. It's propaganda. It's mind control. It is MK Ultra, repetition, Holocaust, 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 race riots, race riots, race riots, MLK, 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 Rodney King, Rodney King, Rodney King, just over and over and over again for 60 plus years. And you end up with that. Somebody who is psychologically broken to the point where they can't see the world objectively. That they think the white people, the European people, are not even a race. Despite being one of them. Despite having traveled to multiple European countries and seen their civilizations. Despite knowing how the rest of the world looks. Despite living in a nation that was built by white people and remained majority white to the tune of 90% for 350 of its 400 years, despite allegedly being high IQ, still psychologically broken. As I said, this is Stockholm syndrome to the indoctrinators. We know who the indoctrinators are, and it is pathological. If you guys don't know what that word means, it's a very important word to have in your arsenal, because first, go look it up. It means that it is a self-destructive belief or practice. And this can be true where the belief is held at an individual level, or a society can hold a pathological belief. And the belief that the general white public have that is pathological is that they are somehow more guilty of historical sins than other races, and this complete lunacy that they aren't even a race. Unbelievable. It is actually pathological because that's what makes them cower and sit back and let all the other groups operate with an in-group bias where they're passing the ball to each other and they insist that they need more of themselves around you. They send their money back home to their people. They stand up advocacy groups in their corporations and in the education system, and they get on the media and talk about how important their group is. But wait a minute, I thought group interests were like completely make-believe. I thought race was a social construct. Well, nobody else is actually putting that belief into practice. Only brainwashed, pathologically destroyed white people have that idea. Complete farce. Suicidal belief. So, I don't want my phone to overheat again. I'm sitting in this car roasting because I can't turn on the air conditioning for the reasons I mentioned before. But that's a glimpse into my personal struggle, you guys. It's enough of a struggle to deal with the Jews, to deal with the minorities, to deal with the crypto-feminist women. And then I got to have this coming from the single digit number of people who actually know me in my personal life, who I have familial relations with, the only ones who haven't written me off. They still need to tell me this nonsense on a regular basis, that I have adopted evil philosophies, that I am off the rails, going down this very dark trajectory. It's tough. The first, second, third time he sent me one of these kind of communications, whether it was a phone call, email, in-person conversation, it was a lot harder then. But, you know, this is one of those things, the serenity prayer, that I always remind you guys about. Taking this world as Jesus did, not as I would have it, but as it is. It would be nice if everybody could understand how propaganda works. It would be nice if people could understand the conflicts of religions, the historical conflicts of interest of the different races. It would be nice if people actually read their Bible. But we don't live in a nice world. We live in a fallen world. We live in a world where the general herd are susceptible to whatever is told to them. They don't have critical thinking skills. They've either been bashed out of them over the head through the education system. They've been propagandized out of them through the media. They've been poisoned. Their actual intellectual capability has been poisoned through the various environmental factors. It's a all-on blitzkrieg on sanity, on reality. To swallow the denial pill about race, religion, genders. It's not hopeless, guys. Just, you have to puke up that pill after you've taken it, in the same way Neo had to be exorcised like a demon. He had to get that toxin purged from his body. The microchip, the bug, the whatever you want to call it, of diversity is our strength. Men and women are just the same. All religions are a relationship with God. You have to puke that back up, as painful as it is. And after that, you have to endure the slander and the misunderstanding, mischaracterizations, the ugly things that are said to you, about you, by people who love you, by people who hate you, the things those people will try to do to you, your career, your romantic life, your friend life, your church life, all of that stuff. Daily life, okay? Daily life of somebody who's just out there standing on truth. That's why the platform's called Beholden to Truth. I am beholden to nothing other than what is true. All of the racial groups have historical grievances, especially against whites. There is no other valid religion other than Christianity. Men and women are not equally attributed. They don't hold the same purpose. Is that hard to understand, those three very basic things? Nope, can't do it. Gonna deny all three. This is why I have new gray hairs popping up every day. Looks like next month I'm gonna be completely gray hair, gray beard. Or I'll be in jail because Donald Trump decided to team up with Palantir and harvest all of our information to create a domestic terrorist list of anybody who criticizes Jews or has anything contrarian to say about this denial pill that everybody has swallowed, and sees them on a dark and dangerous path. And so therefore we have to thought crime, pre-crime them directly, do not pass go into jail. That's our future. That's what we have to look forward to, thanks to people like this. So, tough times, you guys, but we will continue to fight. We will stand on truth. We will not compromise. We will become articulate. We will be researched. We'll be patient with these people who seem to just not get it after 1 month, after 6 months, after a year, after 3 years of continually educating them. We'll just keep doing what we have to do. So until next time, you guys, I love you. Anything else I got to say? Go support the various platforms. Please support the Substack, because I was working on the future course about segregation. I call it white sentience. Maybe I should call it white amputation, where we got a cancer, we need to amputate, okay? It is what it is. White divorce, come up with whatever name you want. But imposed involuntary diversity is killing us. It's bleeding us dry. It's an unending conflict. And I mean that diversity on a racial level and religious level. So, yeah, go support the Substack because I need some support, okay? Follow on Instagram, follow on Rumble, follow on YouTube, leave a comment, like and subscribe. All right, guys, till next time, I love you. Christ is King.
Beholden to Truth. Christ culture. White identity. And fitness lifestyle. Red pilling the masses. On the front lines. Against the synagogue of Satan.